My mother's sweet potato field in Texas looks like a battlefield, the earth torn up, churned into a chaotic mess. Culprits? None other than wild hogs, mercilessly ravaging everything in sight. We knew we had to act. What would be the outcome of this life-or-death showdown? Join us and find out. Before we started, we spent all day yesterday scouting the area, marking water sources, automatic feeders, and the countless hog trails crisscrossing the land. Knowing the terrain was key to picking the perfect ambush spots. This morning, dressed in camo that blends perfectly with the environment and wearing quiet, specialized boots, we did a final check. Radios, rifles loaded, and the pickup truck ready in the rear. Our first spot was an old forest where multiple trails intersect. The wind was blowing against us, masking our scent. Suddenly, Chris gave the hand signal to freeze. Through my scope, my heart skipped a beat. A massive wild hog was rooting behind a huge tree. Man, this beast must have weighed over 400 pounds. The initial shock quickly sharpened into intense focus. I squeezed the trigger repeatedly. Bullets chased the hog as it tried to slip behind the tree for cover, but it was too late. Finally, the beast dropped. A spectacular trophy and a promising start to the day. Following fresh signs, we moved to another area. Ahead was an open clearing, the perfect stage for decisive shots. Wild hogs have incredibly sharp hearing and smell, so we kept a safe distance, never facing them head on unless we were sure of our shot. Minutes later, a sounder of hogs crossed the clearing. I decided to take the last one, slightly separated from the group. Locking my aim, I gently squeezed the trigger. The hog was hit, but survival instinct kicked in, and it bolted deep into the woods. As the day cooled, wild hogs became more active. We switched tactics, setting up an ambush near a preset automatic feeder. This method saves energy, cuts down noise, and gets us within ideal shooting range. Hidden inside a hunting blind, we waited patiently. Soon, a few hogs cautiously approached. I held my fire until one stepped into range. Then, the shot rang out. The hog dropped immediately. My teammate radioed that hogs were showing up at the eastern feeder. We moved quickly to the spot. There it was! I waited for it to get closer, just a bit more. Boom! The moment it paused, I fired, clean and precise. Shooting a stationary hog maximizes the chance of an instant takedown, saving ammo and keeping the area calm. Not long after, another hog approached the feeder. Holding my breath, I took the shot. The loud crack echoed and the beast collapsed onto the ground. Just as we were about to pack up, another sounder arrived at the feeder. We knew this was our last chance of the day. The moment one stepped into my sight, I made a quick, decisive shot. The hog dropped, and the rest scattered into the night. We headed back in the Jeep Wrangler, the truck bed loaded with trophies, especially that giant over 400-pound beast. The joy wasn't just in the successful hunt, but in knowing that tonight, the villagers' fields would finally be safe again. They'll be grateful for that.
Load it up.
After years away, I returned to visit my grandmother, longing for the peaceful days of our quiet countryside. But the sight that greeted me was like a punch to the gut. More than 5 hectares of rice fields had been torn apart, barns collapsed, crops destroyed, all in a single night. The villagers said the wild beasts came without warning. No one had time to react. But I couldn't just stand by and watch my homeland drown in fear. Tonight, we head out, not just to stop the destruction, but to take back the peace that this land once knew. By 6 p.m., we were already on the move, riding in a rugged UAZ Hunter heading deep into South Texas. With weapons and gear loaded, we rolled straight into our planned position. Look at that! Night had barely fallen, and the hogs were already pouring out across the fields. That familiar anger boiled up inside me. I locked onto the lead boar, steady and cold. My finger squeezed the trigger, clean and deliberate. The shot rang out, and the alpha dropped instantly. But the rest? They were sharp, too sharp. Before I could even chamber the next round, they vanished into the dark. Now I understood why they'd torn this place apart so easily. But tonight is different. This hunt is just getting started. After the initial chaos, we moved with more caution, stopping to pinpoint their location using advanced GPS and tracking tech. Once the coordinates were locked in, we moved out, fast and focused. This time, I wasn't alone. Leon was right behind me, moving in sync with every step. We split into different firing angles, covering all possible escape routes. Through the thermal scope, each hog stood out crystal clear, lit up against the cool night. When the targets lined up, the shots rang out. Fast, clean, and deadly accurate. In just a matter of minutes, the entire sounder was wiped out. One by one, those black silhouettes dropped into the field. Silence returned. It was as if no one and nothing had ever passed through this place. As night settled in, the hunt hit its peak, starting right at 10 p.m. We moved in silence, step by careful step, making sure not to startle the wild hogs lurking nearby. This was prime time, when the hogs came out to feed, so the chances of an encounter were high. Our team spread out along the edge of the field, each member locking into position with tight coordination. Out here, any hog that got spotted didn't stand a chance. Under the crosshairs of seasoned hunters, every shot counted, and every shot landed. We pushed deeper into the terrain. Through the thermal scope, I spotted a lone hog quietly breaking off from the group, moving on its own. At just over 100 meters out, I had the distance I needed to watch its movement and line up the shot with precision. Once it stepped into the kill zone, I squeezed the trigger. 2 rounds fired in quick succession, clean, decisive. The hog dropped instantly, motionless beneath the cold blanket of night.
Hey! Woo!
Day or night, it doesn't matter. When protecting this land is the mission, we see it through. We got another report from our team. A sounder of wild hogs had been spotted on the west side of the field. Without hesitation, Leon moved in to close the distance. Under the cover of darkness, the hogs were busy foraging, completely unaware, their natural caution gone. Seizing the moment, Leon controlled his breathing, took careful aim, and pulled the trigger. Boom! Everything was done fast, but with deadly precision. In seconds, the lead hog collapsed, motionless. The rest scattered, vanishing into the shadows. We couldn't let them slip away. The chase went on relentlessly. Hiding in a corner, I silently watched the shadows at the forest's edge. These beasts are always sharp. One wrong move, one gunshot, and they vanish without a trace. But this time, I wasn't about to let them escape. Gunshots rang out in rapid succession, cutting off every possible route. There was no chance left for these wild hogs to ever roam this land again. And just like that, the night hunt came to an end. We headed back, loaded down with a full haul on the 2025 Ranger. No words were needed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, knowing Grandma's crops and the villagers' fields were safe once again. Their population has surged to over 2.6 million, and they're showing up everywhere, from remote farms to the backyards of city homes. And they have one mission: to destroy everything in their way. They rip up the land, pollute our water resources, and compete for food, pushing native wildlife out of their own habitat. That's why we are heading out once again. This is not a hunt for sport. It is a necessary mission to control a destructive species and protect our state, our land, and everything we've built. At 6 a.m., with the plan laid out and every role clearly assigned, we set out once again with unwavering determination. On the western hillside, where Jay stood guard, was a critical choke point. Suddenly, he heard movement. Eyes locked through the scope. He scanned the trail, and there it was. A massive wild hog burst out of the brush at full speed. Jay pulled the trigger. The shot landed true. The beast dropped instantly, the threat neutralized before it could vanish into the deep woods. As the echo of the gunshot faded, peace returned to the land. A perfect start to today's hunt. Meanwhile, over on the eastern flank, I was locked in with a worthy opponent. It was tearing across the hillside like a mad beast, dodging my shots with unreal speed. What on earth is this thing? I muttered to myself, barely believing what I was seeing. Then, in a moment straight out of an action movie, it launched itself past a massive boulder. I knew right then, this was my one shot. It hadn't made it far. My sights were already up, locked in. One pulled the trigger and it dropped. The chase ended right there, in the blink of an eye. Heart pounding, no joke. That last move, tell me fellas, was that a solid 10 or what? As the sun dipped low, we pushed deeper into the hills, into thickets so dense they swallowed up our line of sight. Then suddenly, a wild hog burst out, sprinting full speed down the only trail it could find, desperate to escape. But what it didn't know was that this trail led straight to its end. Kevin, seasoned and sharp, was already there one step ahead. The moment it exposed its weak spot, boom! Boom! Target neutralized, clean and fast. It had speed, but we had the strategy. What do you think, boys? That pincer move was slick or what? As the sun set, the enemy grew bolder. We adjusted our tactics accordingly. The thermal scopes were ready, turning us into true night hunters. Then, out of the darkness, a shadow appeared, boldly rooting up the earth in search of food. That ugly sight was unforgivable. I fired immediately, taking down the threat and restoring peace to the village. It was digging for food, but in the end, it dug its own grave. Here, there's no place for destroyers. As night falls, the world transforms into black and white through the thermal scope. Every movement becomes sharper, clearer than ever with our team's high-tech gear. The wild hogs are feasting in the open clearing, completely unaware that a deadly eye is watching from afar. I calmly pick the biggest one, steady my aim, and squeeze the trigger. In an instant, a shadow drops, and the rest scatter. No time to look back. One shot for the night, so that the dawn can come peacefully. Tomorrow, everything will return to normal, as if the destructive wild hogs never showed up. We moved quickly to track down the rest before the hunt was over. Finn locked onto the lead hog with cold precision. The boss went down instantly, seeing the whole group scatter, not giving them a second to breathe. He swung the rifle and fired relentlessly like a machine, determined to take down as many as possible before they vanished into the woods. So, brothers, how many shots did you count in that final barrage?
From the endless open fields to the most rugged mountain terrain, wild boars have nowhere to hide from the firepower and fearlessness of seasoned hunters. The footage sent in by hunters from across the country left us speechless, deadly accurate shots, heart-pounding pursuits, and moments of pure adrenaline. Today, get ready for some of the most intense and dramatic scenes yet, which will keep you on the edge of your seat. Come with me now, let's dive into some of the most spectacular wild boar chases ever caught on camera.
Go for it, Dan. Yes, go for it.
The first location in today's journey is the grass fields of Queensland, where tall reeds towering overhead make the perfect hiding place for wild boars. Jay brings his weapon and hunting dogs, beginning the search for tracks in the vast sea of grass. Less than 10 minutes later, the barking of the dogs at the edge of the field signals the prey's location. Jay quickly moves in, following the direction of the sound. There it is, a dark silhouette blending quietly into the dense reeds. Jay carefully steps closer, tightening his grip on the rifle. A gunshot rings out just one. The prey takes the full hit, drops without a sound, and lies motionless among the reeds. Halfway across the world, as night falls over the fields of Texas, Irene is already in position by 6 p.m., quietly tracking the last traces of wild boar activity. She moves into her ambush spot, fully prepared to wait for the target. As darkness blankets the land, the prey finally begins to appear. Through her infrared scope, a massive wild boar, easily 500 pounds, is seen moving through the rice field, rooting for food. Irene doesn't hesitate. She silently adjusts her posture, locks in the shooting angle, and pulls the trigger. The gunshot tears through the night. The boar drops on the spot, motionless in the middle of the field. Farewell to Irene. We now cross the North Atlantic to set foot in the Loire Valley, the fertile heartland of France. Under the blazing red sunlight, James stands silently, eyes fixed on the torn-up soil left behind. Without a word, he quickly prepares his gear and moves into a carefully calculated position. Now, it's just a matter of waiting for the herd to return. In the distance, the cunning wild boars trudge slowly toward their den. As soon as the group crests the ridge, a gunshot rips through the stillness. The lead boar drops instantly. More shots follow in rapid succession, but the rest scatter fast, vanishing deep into the valley. Our journey doesn't end there. Next stop, Brandenburg, where it's not just open valleys, but dense, rugged forests. Thick brush creates the perfect cover for wild boars to hide. This time, Mark leads a team of hunting dogs, determined to sweep every corner of the forest, leaving the beasts no chance to escape. While tracking signs through the tangled undergrowth, the dogs suddenly bark nearby, loud and urgent. The prey is close. Mark immediately turns and scans the area. Then, without warning, a massive wild boar bursts out from the bushes. At that very moment, a gunshot rings out sharp, fast, and precise. It drops instantly. No chance to run. No time to fight back. From grassy plains to dense forests, the pursuit hasn't cooled down. This time, we head to the Urals, a cold, rugged mountain range where wild boars hide deep inside rocky caves. Luckily, the sun broke through today. The beasts began to leave their shelters, stepping out to warm themselves, and that's the perfect window. Nathan quickly geared up and climbed into the snowy mountains to begin the search. Just 15 minutes in, he spotted a massive boar over 400 pounds lying in the sun. Wasting no time, Nathan raised his rifle, steadied his aim with each breath, then pulled the trigger. A deafening shot echoed through the mountains. The herd panicked and scattered in all directions. But what had been hit? We gave chase immediately and found it motionless, lying in the cold snow. The final stop on this journey takes us deep into the frost-covered forest, cold, silent, and thick with brush-primed territory for wild boars. And just as expected, only 15 minutes later, a dark figure quietly emerged from behind a nearby thicket. The moment it stepped into view, Mike seized the chance, bringing it down instantly. To leave no room for error, he fired a follow-up shot, ending any chance of escape. Have you ever heard stories about hunting giant monsters with a bow and arrow? Well, that monster is none other than the fierce wild boars. They brazenly destroy our crops, uproot the forest soil, and cause great harm to our people. Today, we will enter a tough battle, using bows and arrows to confront these dangerous invaders. At 4 p.m., we gathered at the edge of the forest to begin tracking the wild boars. We moved toward an automatic feed dispenser that had been set up earlier. We deliberately placed the device in a small puddle to increase its appeal to the wild boars. As predicted, the wild boars appeared, drawn by the strong scent. They busily picked up each piece of food, paying no attention to the lurking danger. From afar, I slowly raised my bow and drew the string. 3, 2, 1, shoot. The bowstring stretched to its limit. The steel-tipped arrow sliced through the air and struck the target. A perfect shot. The wild boar let out a single painful scream. However, it did not immediately fall, but instead panicked and charged forward. Still, we knew well, with that fatal wound, it would soon collapse. Unable to resist the enticing smell of the corn kernels, another herd of boars approached the feeding machine. Without rushing, I calmly took careful aim. After the wild boar had completely let down its guard, I quickly released the string, shooting an arrow toward the outermost boar. The arrow flew swiftly and struck one boar, bringing it down to the ground. A precise, clean shot, as if perfectly calculated in advance. In another spot, perched quietly on a tall stand in the forest, Henry watched a group of wild boars. They were busy searching for food, unaware that we had been waiting for them all along. Then released. The arrow flew and struck the boar, causing it to immediately flee. But we didn't chase right away, knowing the wound would soon bring it down. Deeper into the forest, we encountered a massive male boar. In a tense moment, another arrow was released, striking directly at the boar's vital spot. It staggered, took a few final steps, then collapsed onto the ground. The next afternoon, we continued the hunt. Following the tracks left on the ground, we discovered a strong wild boar weighing about 80 kilograms, casually digging for food. It was completely unaware of our presence. This was the chance. My friend's hand gripped the bow tightly. The bowstring was drawn taut, waiting for the perfect moment. Every tense second stretched endlessly. Shoot! And then, after those anxious moments, the final prey finally fell. We continued by choosing a tall tree trunk that both concealed our presence and provided an ideal vantage point for observation. In the puddle ahead, food had been spread out, acting as a perfect trap to lure the greedy wild boars. Once everything was in place, all that remained was to wait for the right moment. I quietly raised my bow. Stop. Aiming directly at the strong boar in front. Drawing the string taut with full force, I released. A shot to the vital spot would bring it down soon enough. I drew the bowstring, locked my eyes on the target, then release. But no, I missed once again.
By shooting through the cactus.
There is no place for haste. Only patience, practice, and calmness lead to success. And I know I must try harder to win in the upcoming hunts. Thank you all for following this journey.